Hello, this is Mike from Boulder, and I'd like to share with you some tips that I've kind of learned over the years in working with my StarCraft 1701 pop-up camper. The topic for today's video is how I kind of manage working with my awning that came with the camper, and particularly when I'm camping alone. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching all sorts of videos out there with various groups who are putting out principally focus on how to set up their campers. And I've yet to see one which really talks about the awning. Yet that's really a critical part of it. To me, it's what expands the whole area out front where I can sit up, set up chairs and a little table. It's where I kind of do the cooking, which is normally right along in this area, and just adds a lot to the overall experience. We've had this trailer pop up since 2006. My wife and I have thoroughly enjoyed our experiences in camping in the national parks here in Colorado. And I've done several other videos that you might find useful, particularly if you're new to pop-up camping. I've done one, I think they're all kind of start off the title, Tips for New Pop-Up Campers. One I did on how I set up the outside area, sitting area, which includes the use of both Reflectix materials in the windows and space blanket over the sleeping areas, particularly in the summer months. I did another one on how we set up and manage the inside of the camper, and everyone has their own ways of doing that. I did one on how I mounted a small portable solar panel on the roof, and I can reorient it to improve its performance. Did one on how actions I took to improve the performance of the Dometic refrigerator. So some of those, I think could be of interest to you. At least there's some little tidbits that would be of use to you. And again, I've enjoyed seeing, all the videos that are out there by various people and their experiences. But again, I've not seen anything which had particularly addressed how to best do, work with your awning, and some considerations there. And particularly if you're camping alone, which I frequently do now, how to set up the awning, which can be a challenge. So anyway, I'll have a link to some of the other videos up here, however that'll appear, and also at the end of this video. So without further ado, all right, now what I'd like to do is just continue on, and I'll highlight how I go ahead and erect my awning. Again, just kind of looking at this, the size of our StarCraft camper is probably the smaller size. The total box length here is about 8 feet. The size of the awning is 7 feet across. I've kind of flipped up the lid here to show one adaptation I made, which was kind of helpful. Is originally what kind of helped retain the awning once you rolled it up here was a set of cloth ties. I don't know if that's on newer, pop-ups now. But the problem I always had with them is if I wasn't careful, rather than getting a nice bow knot, I got a square knot, which was a pain in the butt to try and loosen. Also, after a period of time, one of the ties just kind of wore out and broke. So I had to think of how to replace it. And what I came up with is in your local hardware store, Ace, or for us McGuckins, you can buy these Velcro straps, where one side is the hook and one side's kind of the luff or softer part. And so I kind of figured if I, unfortunately, would have to make a small slice in the awning, right about where it almost attaches up here. Reinforce it with a lot of glue, but now I'd have this strap, one coming down, I'd make it a little shorter, and this one here. When I roll it up, I could kind of get it up real tight, kind of almost hold it with my my arm there, and just flip this up, and it grabs it. So I replaced now both of them there, and I've been quite pleased with that. So it works quite well. We'll go through and I'll show you kind of how I can set this up single without needing two people. But of course, it's a hell of a lot easier to do it if you have two of you. Couple to point out, actually what you probably will see if you're down to the right there, that's my very handy red toolbox, a plastic thing I just bought. And that is where I keep my little scissor jack in case, I have to replace the flat tire. I have a couple pads that can either go under the wheels or the supports in the back. Let's see. Oh, the most important thing in here is I have a little case here. It's actually probably like was used probably more for when you're traveling for carrying soap and various things. And what I use it for is I have two now, the tent pegs, which have the bright yellow parachute cord. And these are the two ties that I use to attach to the corners of the awning when it's out and anchor it down. And this just gives it more stability, particularly in times of wind. And then I have two other tent pegs. And this style I can get at Walmart. Very good, strong aluminum, rod part. What I liked here again is the fact it's got a little loop hole there. And these two, I put a short length of parachute cord on it. And these I'll put down into the ground adjacent to the legs, the vertical legs, and use the little short, lengths of line here to secure that to the legs. And that keeps them very stable. And then, of course, to pound it all in, a very handy, just a smaller size hatchet. You can use it to chop some wood as well, but this is what I use to pound the stakes in. And all of that fits into that little red case. And then again, that stores inside the camper. So let's see, I think what we'll just do is I'll reposition the camera so you can kind of see the entire thing as I go ahead and erect the awning. So we'll take a quick pause. Continuing on, in terms of getting my awning up, again, you come into the campsite. I'll try and position the camper where there's room enough to extend the awning out. I'll then go ahead and level the camper, forward and back and crosswise, so I can get that done. Chock the wheels if need be. And at that point, I'll go ahead and raise the roof of the camper, but only about to eye elevation. I find it much easier to work with it, the awning, at that elevation, at that height, versus trying to reach way above me. So what I've kind of cheated here a little bit is I've gone ahead, raised it a little above eye height, unrolled the awning, and gone ahead and attached my two support lines on either corner. And again, they're hooked into a little D-ring, which I mounted onto the metal frame here. A little carbonaire type clamp here, and the line going out with a a tent peg in the ground, and it's more or less straight, but not very tight. And after a while, one can kind of figure out the best way to do it. I try and do it when the awning is actually up all the way, that the line will more or less be in line to the opposite corner of the awning. And you may reposition it a bit. And you can get a rough idea of what would look like by, once it's there, just stretching it out and raising it. And you can see if the line will be a little too loose or not tight enough. In fact, this may be a little loose. Okay, now how to do it with the two vertical legs. The best way I've found is we'll go ahead and swivel this around so I can get the vertical legs out. And in this case, I'll just do the lower one, where again, I have some lines, little marked with a felt marker in here, so I can get that set. And just for this purpose, I'll just go ahead and put out the lower one. Do this with the other one. And by doing it this way, there's a lot less chance that you're going to, bend the frame all up. Again, with here's my little black line. There's the hole. I'm going to try and get the little button to go into. Got to be careful when you get down toward the tail end so you don't pull it out. So both the vertical legs are here. At this point, I can just lift the whole frame up, get the legs more or less to stand straight, and looks like my line's here just a little bit loose. It'll still kind of hold, but you'll have it taut enough that it'll more or less stand up. Hi. For now, we'll just tighten them. And again, this works out fairly well. At this point, I'll go ahead and unlatch the horizontal rods and get them in place. And with the horizontal rods, as I've mentioned, I think previously, I also figured out how far out I can pull the first rod here without pulling it totally out. And I marked the location with a heavy black marker. So at that point, I'll lock it. The second group, the second little rod is staying loose, and I can just get it up and get it into the frame. And again, I'm not reaching way over my head. With the second one now, this is the one I'll just tighten, pull out all the way and tighten it. And you can see it, keeps things pretty well straight. Do the same with this one. And again, we'll tighten that all the way out. And there's the little Velcro strap here that will then help hold it in place. You can then just reposition the vertical legs as things go. And at that point, I'll go ahead, maybe loosen the lines just a little bit, and go ahead and raise the roof of the camper the rest of the way. And then at that point in time, once I get the roof up, these look like in good position. The lines here tighten appropriately. I'll use the last 2 tent pegs with the short parachute cord here to anchor the vertical legs to the ground. Without that, or without this as well, a good gust of wind could come lift the whole thing up, and the whole awning collapses. So with this in place, it's pretty well set. And putting, at the end, when we're finished and getting ready to pack the camper up, you go through just kind of the reverse process. First I'll get everything out of the camper and get it ready so I can lower it. The side beds and everything pushed in. Then I'll go ahead and lower it down until, again, we're about eye height, right about here, because that's easy to work with. At that point, I'll go ahead and disconnect the horizontal support rods that go back to it, swing them in, and reposition them in here. Then what I'll do is I'll take the vertical rods up once I've removed the tent pegs and just lower the whole awning down to the ground with the legs coming out straight, like we saw earlier. At that point, it's very easy then to simply push them, together and push them back into the frame. And again, that's very useful because this whole structure here is loom and it's not super strong. And it's possible to get that all bent out of shape if you kind of put too much stress on this. So anyway, that's what's worked for me, to finally then roll it up. Once these are all in, I can just get here and just slowly roll it. And with it not being at too high a height to finally pack it up, I can do it fairly easily. If it was a much bigger awning, probably couldn't do it. You would need 2 people. So anyway, hope that helps a little bit. I was following on with a couple other little projects that I kind of tie in with.